in a land far to the north, where the world is carved from snow and ice. There was a season called the Long Night. For many months, the sun would dip below the horizon and not return, leaving the world bathed in a beautiful, perpetual twilight of moon and starlight. In a small, cozy village of snowy-roofed huts lived a young girl named Anja. Anja loved the long night, while others grew sad without the sun. She found magic in the quiet and the dark. She loved the way the stars looked like scattered diamonds on a cloth of deep blue velvet, and the way the full moon made the snow-covered fields sparkle and glitter. Her grandmother had taught her a special, ancient art, a secret known only to the women of their family. She had taught Anja how to weave. But Anja didn't weave with wool or with cotton. Anja knew how to gather the silvery light of the moon and spin it into soft, warm, glowing threads. She was a weaver of moonlight. Inside her family's hut, which was warm and smelled of pine smoke and baking bread, Anja had a special loom. It was small and made of pale, smooth driftwood. Every night, she would sit before it and practice her magical craft. She would go outside with a special crystal spindle, and as she sang a quiet, ancient song, the moonlight would seem to condense around it, forming a single, shimmering, silvery white thread. She would gather these threads one by one and bring them inside to her loom. Her hands would move with a slow, practiced grace, weaving the glowing threads together. She would weave blankets that were as soft as a cloud and as warm as a sunbeam, even though they were made of cool moonlight. The blankets would glow with a gentle, steady, silvery light, pushing back the deep darkness of the long winter night. She would give these blankets as gifts to the new babies born in the village, or to the elders whose bones ached with the cold. Her blankets were not just for warmth. They were blankets of comfort, of hope, and of gentle, magical light. A small but important gift in a world of long and beautiful shadows. Usually, during the long night, the sky itself would provide a special kind of magic. The northern lights, the villagers called them, would dance across the heavens, great, silent ribbons of green and pink and purple light. They were a beautiful, magical fire that kept the people's spirits warm, even when the air was cold. But this winter, the lights had not come. The sky remained a plain, dark canvas, beautiful with its stars, but empty of its usual joyful colors. Without the dancing lights, a deep sadness and a weary gloom began to settle over the village. The happy songs by the fire grew quiet, and the cheerful stories were told less often. The world felt a little less magical, a little more cold, and a little more dark. Anja felt it too. Her moonlight blankets were beautiful, but they're steady. Silver light could not replace the wild, joyful dance of the colors in the sky. She would look out her window at the empty, dark heavens, her heart aching for the beautiful, swirling lights that she missed so much, a feeling of helplessness growing with each passing, colorless night. Anja went to her grandmother, her heart full of worry. "Grandmother," she asked, her voice a troubled whisper, "why won't the lights dance for us this year?" Her grandmother, who was very old and very wise, sighed a slow, deep sigh. "The lights are not just lights, my child," she explained, her voice as soft as falling snow. "They are the Aurora Spirit, a great, joyful creature made of pure light and color. And when the world is happy, she dances. But she is very sensitive. When the world grows sad, her own heart grows heavy, and she retreats to her sleeping place to rest." "Her sleeping place?" Anja asked. "Where is that?" Her grandmother pointed a wrinkled finger towards the north, towards the colossal, jagged peaks of the great glacier that stood on the very edge of the world. Deep within the oldest, bluest ice, she said, is the crystal heart of the glacier. That is where she sleeps. The legends say that she will not wake until she feels a great warmth, a warmth not of fire, but of pure joy and hope, to remind her that it is time to dance again. A bold and brave idea sparked in Anja's heart. She looked at her own loom, at the beautiful, warm, and comforting blanket she was weaving from Moonlight. It was a blanket full of hope. What if, she thought, that was the warmth the Aurora Spirit needed? What if she could weave a special blanket? A blanket so full of her love for the sky and her hope for the village, that it would be warm enough to wake the sleeping spirit. It was a daring plan. The Great Glacier was a long and dangerous journey away, a place of deep cold and shifting ice. But the thought of her village living without the joyful colors in the sky was a much scarier thought. She knew what she had to do. That very night, she began to work. She gathered more moonlight than she ever had before, her spindle glowing with a brilliant, silvery light. And she began to weave a new blanket, larger and more intricate than any she had ever made. As she wove, she poured all of her happiest memories into the threads. She wove in the memory of the first snowfall, the feeling of her mother's warm hugs, and the taste of sweet cloudberry jam. She was weaving not just with moonlight, but with pure, unadulterated love. When the blanket was finished, it was a masterpiece. It glowed with a light so bright and so warm with feeling that it seemed to push back the cold in the entire hut. She rolled it carefully and packed it in a waterproof sealskin bag, along with some dried fish and a warm flask. With a quiet kiss for her sleeping parents, she slipped out of the village and began her long journey north. The world she traveled through was one of breathtaking, silent beauty. Great fields of untouched snow sparkled under the stars, and giant icicles, as tall as trees, hung from the cliffs like frozen waterfalls. It was a world of white and silver and deep, silent blue. She traveled for days, guided by the North Star, her own small, determined figure a tiny speck in the vast, empty landscape. The journey was cold and lonely, but she was not afraid. She had her mission to keep her heart warm, and whenever she felt her courage waver, she would open her pack and touch the glowing, warm blanket, and the feeling of the love and hope she had woven into it would give her the strength to keep going. After many days of walking, Anja finally reached the base of the Great Glacier. It was like standing at the foot of a mountain made of pure, blue, frozen light. The ice was ancient, and it seemed to hum with a deep, sleepy, and powerful energy. Following the legend, she searched for the entrance to its heart. She found a low, hidden cave, its entrance a perfect arch of the deepest, clearest blue ice. She stepped inside, and her breath was taken away. She was in a vast, circular cavern, and the entire space was filled with giant, perfectly formed ice crystals. The starlight from outside filtered through the icy ceiling, and it was fractured and reflected 1,000,000 times by the crystals, filling the cavern with a soft, shifting, rainbow-colored light. It was the quietest place she had ever been. There was no wind, no sound, only the deep, silent cold and the beautiful, colored light. In the very center of the cavern, she saw it, a great, translucent mass, like a cloud of frozen mist, was suspended in the heart of the largest crystal. It was the Aurora Spirit, and it was fast asleep. Anja approached the great central crystal slowly, her soft boots making no sound on the icy floor. The sleeping Aurora Spirit was a faint, barely their presence, a gentle, milky white wisp that swirled in a slow, deep, and dreamless sleep. It was beautiful, but it was also sad. It had no color, no energy, no joy. It was as if its heart had grown cold and had forgotten how to dance. This was the moment she had traveled so far for. With gentle, careful hands, Anja opened her sealskin bag and took out the blanket she had made. The blanket's brilliant, silvery white light, so full of warmth and love, was a stark contrast to the cold, blue light of the ice cave. It seemed to pulse with all the happy memories she had woven into it. She could not pass through the crystal to touch the spirit, so she did the only thing she could. She walked to the base of the great crystal and gently, lovingly, draped her beautiful, glowing moonlight blanket over the ice, directly over the spot where the spirit was sleeping within. It was a gift, an offering, a warm woolen hug for a sleeping heart. The warmth of the blanket, a warmth of pure love and hope, began to seep through the ancient, cold ice. It was not a heat that would melt the crystal, but a gentle, magical warmth that was meant for the spirit's heart. Anja watched, her own heart pounding with anticipation. For a long, silent moment, nothing happened. The spirit remained a still, white wisp. But then, a tiny, slow swirl of movement stirred in the center of the misty form. A single, faint, and beautiful color appeared within the whiteness. It was a soft, delicate shade of rose pink, like the first blush of a baby's cheek. The spirit was stirring. It could feel the warmth. It could feel the love from Anja's gift. The pink swirl was joined by a gentle wisp of pale spring green. The colors were faint, but they were there. It was the first new color the world had seen all winter. Anja's eyes filled with tears of joy. It was working. The blanket of moonlight memories was waking the spirit from its long, sad sleep. She pressed her hands against the crystal, adding her own warmth to the blankets, and she began to hum a soft, hopeful lullaby. Encouraged by that first hint of color, Anja began to sing softly, her voice a gentle echo in the crystal cavern. She sang of her village, of the laughing children, and of how much they all missed the beautiful, dancing lights in the sky. She poured all her hope and all her longing for the return of joy into her simple song. As her voice and the blanket's warmth worked their magic, the Aurora Spirit began to wake in earnest. The soft pink and green swirls within its misty form grew stronger, brighter, and they were joined by a deep royal purple. The spirit began to uncurl from its tight, sleeping ball, stretching and unfurling like a great heavenly serpent made of pure, colored light. More and more colors appeared, swirling and blending together in a silent, breathtaking dance. The milky white mist of its sleeping form was completely gone, replaced by a vibrant, living ribbon of pure, magical light. A soft, powerful, and deeply joyful energy began to pulse from the crystal, filling the entire cavern with a sense of immense, awakening happiness. The spirit was no longer sleeping. It was awake, and it was ready to dance. With a final, joyful pulse of energy that made the entire glacier hum, the Aurora Spirit could no longer be contained by its crystal bed. It flowed upwards, a magnificent river of color, passing harmlessly through the thick ice of the cavern ceiling and bursting out into the night sky. The night, which had been so dark and empty, was suddenly filled with a breathtaking explosion of light and color. The spirit danced. It soared and dipped. It twisted and unfurled, painting the vast black canvas of the sky with great, sweeping strokes of emerald green, soft rose, pink, and deep royal purple. It was a dance of pure, unrestrained joy, a celebration of being awake and free. Down in the cavern, Anja watched, tears of happiness streaming down her cheeks. The beautiful, glowing moonlight blanket, its work now done, slipped from the crystal and she caught it in her arms. It was still warm, but its brilliant light had softened, as if it had given all its energy to the spirit. She had done it. She had woven a blanket of hope, and with it, she had reawakened the joy of the entire world. Far away, in the quiet, snowy village, the people were in their homes, their hearts heavy with the long, dark night. Then, the first of the colors appeared in the sky, a soft, green glow on the horizon. A villager saw it and called out, his voice full of a hope he hadn't felt in months. Everyone rushed from their huts, their faces turning to the sky, and they watched, in stunned, breathless silence, as the Aurora Spirit began its magnificent dance. The sky was filled with more color and more light than they had ever seen before. The lights were not faint or distant. They were vibrant, close, and full of a joyful, powerful energy. The entire snowy landscape was illuminated in shifting shades of green and pink. The sad, heavy gloom that had settled over the village was instantly lifted, replaced by a feeling of pure, unadulterated wonder. The children laughed and pointed, their happy sounds a beautiful echo of the dancing lights above. The elders smiled, their old eyes full of grateful tears. The joy had returned. The magic was back. They did not know how or why, but they felt a deep and profound sense of gratitude for the beautiful, dancing spirit that had finally returned to warm their hearts. High up on the glacier, Anja knew it was time to go home. Her heart was light, and her spirit was soaring with the dancing lights above. The journey back was very different from the journey there. It was not a cold and lonely walk. The brilliant, colorful light of the dancing aurora lit her way, making the snow sparkle with 1,000 magical colors. The world was no longer just white and silver and blue. It was now green and pink and purple, too. And she was not alone. As she walked, a new friend appeared. A beautiful, pure white Arctic fox with eyes the color of the aurora itself began to trot silently beside her. It was a messenger from the spirit, a silent guardian sent to guide her and thank her for her kindness. The fox stayed with her the entire way, its white coat a beautiful contrast to the colorful snow. The journey was a joyful and magical parade, a celebration of a promise kept and a world reawakened. She walked with a steady, happy step, the soft, warm blanket in her pack, and a heart full of a quiet, deep, and lasting pride. When Anja arrived back at her village, the celebration was in full swing. The villagers were singing and dancing, their hearts full of joy for the return of the lights. They greeted Anja as a hero, for they had seen her walking back from the direction of the great glacier with the magical white fox at her side. And they knew, in the way that people in magical lands often know, that she was the reason for the sky's newfound happiness. Her grandmother met her at the edge of the village and wrapped her in a long, warm hug, her old eyes shining with pride and love. "You have a good and brave heart, my child," she whispered. "You have woven a new season of joy for us all." Anja simply smiled. She did not speak of her journey or the sleeping spirit. It was a secret, a special friendship between her and the sky. She knew that the greatest gifts are often the ones given quietly, without any need for thanks or praise. The happy, dancing lights in the sky were all the thanks she would ever need. That night, tucked once more in her own cozy bed, Anja was the happiest girl in the world. She placed the special blanket she had woven for the spirit at the foot of her bed. Its light was softer now, but it still held the warmth of her happy memories and the echo of the Aurora's magic. Outside her window, the northern lights continued their gentle, sleepy dance, a promise that they would now stay for the rest of the long night. Anja knew that she was now a part of their story, just as they were a part of hers. She made a silent promise to the dancing lights. She promised that she would continue to be their friend. She would continue to weave her blankets of moonlight, not just for the babies and the elders, but as a gift of thanks to the sky, a way to add her own small, quiet light to the great, beautiful dance of the Aurora Spirit. And with that peaceful, happy thought, her heart full of the beautiful colors of the night, Anja closed her eyes and drifted off into a deep, warm, and wonderfully colorful sleep. And so, Anja, the weaver, and the spirit of the sky danced together, filling the long night with warmth and color. Now it's your turn to find the beautiful colors in your own dreams. Close your eyes, imagine your favorite color filling your mind, and sleep well. If you enjoyed our fable tonight, we hope you'll join us again. Please like and subscribe to Bedtimes Fable to help us share more gentle stories with the world. Sweet dreams.